Okay, so hello. Some of you may know me, some of you might know me not as well as others. You might recognize me from my posters, or maybe if you're a first year, I helped you pick out your books at the bookstore your first day at King's. But I'm Aidan, and will be explaining why I'm running for Board of Governors Rep. First of all, what is it? What is Board of Governors Rep? It's a student who's elected to sit on the Board of Governors, which is the supreme governing board that manages funds and properties, as well as votes on decisions that affect the university. The Board of Governors Rep represents the collective voice of the students and acts as the liaison between the students and the board. So why would I want to do that? Is it because I like dressing in blazers and talking to adults? I would be lying if I said that wasn't a little bit a part of it. However, there are some other reasons that I think Board of Governors is important. As one of the only elected members to sit on the board, I believe strongly in open communication that goes on at board meetings and the students. The majority of those who sit on the board are not students. Therefore, it would be my job to represent our voice in the decisions being made. I believe in transparency of the board and that it is crucial to have an informed student body to be able to speak up and make sure that our voice is being heard. Whether it is a new proposed fee or an increase in tuition, it is through awareness and mobilization that we are able to have a say in decisions that affect us and our university. I believe in the powers of the student voice, and uniting our concerns together has and will continue to have influence. While there were only 3 students amongst a large board, last year when there was a proposed 8% increase to the residence fees, students raised their concerns that the fee was reduced to 3%. This is an example of communication between board and students that resulted in a solution that both parties could agree on. Being on the board would give me the right to vote in the name of the students, which is a great honor. While I would love to consult each and every one of you before every vote, that might prove to be slightly unrealistic. Electing me would mean that you are trusting me to do what is in the student's interest. Given this, I believe that it is important for me to share my values and what I stand for. What we do here at King's is very special. Our limited size, our specialized curriculum, and excellent professors create an environment of learning that is unique and that inspires critical thinking. The other day, my prof recognized me in the grocery store. How many other universities can you say that? As a member of the King's community, I want to make sure the decisions reflect our Kings, that we don't lose sight of the vision of our university that has worked for us for over 200 years. The education and knowledge that we gain at King's is one that makes us critical thinkers, something that we need more of in this world, and something that we should be offering to everyone. The right to higher level education is something that should be available to everyone, no matter what financial barriers might be in the way. For this reason, I aim to make my decisions reflect the need for accessible education. While I believe in decisions that benefit the university as a whole, what is a university without students? To conclude, you might be asking, why me? Why Aidan? I believe that I have the skills that would make me an engaged board member. I have the patience, the willingness to collaborate, and the professionalism that I believe are crucial for a board member environment. Finally, I would like to say that I have never been on a board like this before. The fact is, most students haven't, and to say that I know exactly what I would be doing would be foolish. With that in mind, I am promising that I will do what I can to serve the students in the best way that I possibly can. This position will be a challenge and a learning curve for me, but it is a challenge that I intend to meet head on. If in this speech you've been convinced that I would make a good board member, or we share the same vision for the future of our university, I encourage you to come out to the polls on Wednesday and vote Aidan.
You guys probably all know me by now. I'm Kyril Wolfe, alright? I'm running for Board of Governors Rep, alright? Board of Governors Rep, as Aidan said, sits in on the Board of Governors meetings. They're the head honchos of the university. They decide pretty much everything, alright? Part of my job is to make sure that everything's transparent for the students, raise awareness about certain issues that are coming up in the college, and most importantly, to represent their voice in the Board of Governors meetings. Why me? Well, first off, I'm a pretty chill guy. I'm just gonna shove that out there. Second off, I really do try to make sure that not only is my voice sort of heard, mostly because I speak loudly, but because I always am, my goal is to sort of just get myself out there, getting as many opinions as possible, not just going to the KSU, but making sure that everybody can just walk up to me and say, hey, what happened in the Board of Governors meeting? Can I just talk to you about something that I've heard or something? come up to me. Perfectly fine, I want that to happen. If I could talk to every single student at King's, that'd be remarkable. Canvassing everybody here is a good start, sort of, I guess. But I guess all in all, I'm just sort of saying I want to be your spokesman. I want to express all of your opinions, no matter how big or small they may be. I want to make sure that Kings stay Kings as much as possible, and that things like tuition or any other crazy changes that the board might suggest, you know, if we do our best to make sure they don't happen. So that's pretty much it.
All right. As a student on the Board of Governors, you'll recognize that at times the opinion that you have in the room is contrary to the opinion that some administrators or alumni or all sorts of different board members may have. So let's take tuition as an example. That's gone up incrementally in the last few years, and students have consistently voted against that. But in the room, it can be very tense and awkward to voice any dissident opinions about anything. How would you handle that kind of pressure in which you are trying to represent your students, but the room may feel differently? And where do you have examples in your experience that may help you?
You want to go first, or should I?
Go ahead, girl.
Okay. That's when it's more important to stand up, when you're the only person standing up. I mean, I don't have any huge particular examples I can say, oh yeah, I was the big hero in the room saying, you know, this isn't the right thing to do. We need to, you know, do the right thing and be the only person there. But, you know, it is the most important time to actually say something is when you're the only person who's actually going to say it, and say it loudly, proudly, assertively, and with a lot of authority. Because, you know, taking the tuition example, you know, a 3% increase for you guys was pretty big, but then that was also on top of, for me, you know, I'm an international student. I already paid double tuition, so it's even worse for me in order to say, oh yeah, 3%, that's not that much. I'm on student loans. It's going to be a lot in about 12 years or so once the interest kicks in. So when I'm alone, that's when I stand up more. And when I stand up and I speak more loudly, more almost aggressively, but obviously not too disrespectfully.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, so with Kyril as well, I think that if I would be elected into this position, like that would be the job. You have to present what, you know, the voices of the students are saying. And I think that something to realize as well is while there are, you know, 3 students amongst a large board, they represent everyone behind them as well. So I know that in the past there have been initiatives to get to show support, either with like letters written or meetings called together to inform students, but also have the support. So it's not just your voice, you're not just a singular voice inside a room that might not be the most hospitable environment, but you also have, you know, I have 150 signatures here for my students, or like I have these letters, or, you know, in making sure that you're engaging and you have the support of the community. And I think that's something great that we do have at King's, is that community that will do that and is willing to do that and cares about those issues.
That is actually something important you touched on is, you know, if you're alone in the boardroom, go outside the boardroom and get about 150 people to stand behind you is a very important thing to do, and I'm glad you said something like that.
Great. Any other questions?
And then I'm going to talk a bit about my experience as Board of Governors rep and other experience I have that I hope will make me a good external vice president if elected, and then a little bit about my goals and my general love for the student movement. And by the way, camera, my name is Anika and I'm running for external vice president. So just very briefly, the external vice president, as far as I understand from talking with people, advocates for student issues. So this can be with politicians, to the media, in the community, runs social justice and environmental campaigns on campus, and builds connections or does like solidarity work with members in the community and groups in the community that have like-minded kind of goals. And then of course just generally contributes to the functioning of the union, make sure things go smoothly. So my experience, I think that this year it's important to have an experienced external vice president, because this is a year where the new memorandum of understanding is going to be signed, and this is an agreement between the universities and the administration that dictates things like tuition increases, things like ancillary fees, like the famous technology fee that we all pay, and things like that. So I think it's important to have a strong student voice, especially this year. And it's also going to be a year of a day of action, which is where we hopefully get thousands of students to take to the streets and kind of show government that education, post-secondary education, needs to be a priority. It needs to be something that we're concerned about, and so this is probably going to take a lot of time and organization, and I have experience with those kinds of things. So I guess my formal kind of experience is that I was Board of Governors rep for the last year and a half approximately, and I learned a lot about the administration here and our governance structure and our financial situation, as well as how memorandum of understanding work on the ground, which often they don't always work the best in favor of students. And I also gained a lot of knowledge about student issues and skills in advocacy. Like we were talking about, it is kind of scary sometimes talking on the board, and it's important to also have the student's voice behind you. And so I think I've gained skills in kind of how to get word out about things, and how to advocate for issues that are important for us. And I think one of the things I'm the most proud of is I think I've shown a strong commitment to transparency, accountability, and communication. I put a lot of effort into advertising my office hours, and I've had a Facebook page where I post a lot of things about student issues and memes, and general equity and social justice issues. And I hope that that's been appreciated by some people. So yeah, that's something that I'm proud of that I've done. I also recently got elected as Women's Liaison Officer with the Canadian Federation of Students, which is a kind of organization that connects students all over Canada and advocates for issues of equitable post-secondary education, as well as trying to create a generally more equitable world. So through my involvement with them, I got involved with them before I got elected. I've learned a lot more about issues of oppression and privilege, and I've started questioning my own privilege. And so I think that this is something useful for running campaigns, especially around social justice campaigns. And then I love sustainability. That's my degree. I started a garden in second year. Garden may not have gone so well, but I have a strong commitment to sustainability, and hopefully a reasonably strong knowledge base around it too. I also recognize that I don't know everything. I don't know exactly what I'm getting myself into in this position. I have talked to some past external vice presidents, but I hope that my record as Board of Governors shows that if I don't know what I'm talking about and I don't know what I'm doing, I'll put the time into researching it. I'll put the time into finding it out. So I have a few goals. One is I want to get the External Action Committee, which is the main kind of body that I would be in charge of, that runs campaigns and that does solidarity work, to get it more alive and active, and to foster it as a place not only to go out to events, but also as a place for discussion, like having discussions about what does privilege mean and things like that. I think it'd be really interesting to open that up, and I also think that like Emma had an amazing feminist collective meeting, and there's so many people out there because I think feminism for a lot of people is very personal, and so making these kind of issues of equity personal and talking about it and getting people engaged that way, and then kind of making it political and getting us out on the streets and kind of engaging people on the individual level, and then like making it a political thing. So I think that that's something that I'm looking forward to doing with that, hopefully. I want to look at how Sustainability Kings runs and try and get a little bit more structured, so we have a mix of DIYs. We have the first DIY event that Brianna, who's the sustainability officer, organized, is coming up this Thursday, about making your own cosmetics like toothpaste and stuff like that, and also talks kind of like is technology good for the environment or is it bad for the environment, and kind of trying to get like discussions going along the same lines as at the External Action Committee, and then of course continuing to do actions. I also have the broader goal of having a more positive outcome for students at with the Memorandum of Understanding. And making sure that this Memorandum of Understanding is going to be formed through open consultation through a bunch of stakeholders, including students, so making sure that the student voice is very strong in this, and also hopefully having a good showing for the Day of Action. And then my last goal, I guess, is Solidarity. Always has been, always will be, don't judge me, which is that student politics works on a lot of serious issues and a lot of important issues, but we're all young, and I think we should have fun while we're doing it. And how much time do I have left? Okay, then there we are.
So, questions for Anika? Here we go.
Okay, so I know you work as a page. Do you think your time there, being around politicians, may shape the way you bring student issues to provincial politics?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I worked in the legislature. Basically, you're like a servant, and you like you get coffee and stuff, and you spend a lot of time standing and watching them debate. So you kind of get to see the way they frame issues and the way they take issues, and I've actually heard them speaking about tuition and stuff, which has been pretty interesting. I think that it would kind of like help me. Like, you have to present things so that, not because it like makes sense purely when you're presenting new policy recommendations, but so that they can make it kind of like sellable to the public, because they are at the whims of public like desirability or whatever. So I think that's something that's important. But I also I think the Canadian Federation of Students, which just actually came out with an awesome policy document, which I've also posted a summary to online. You should all check it out. Is really good at making things palatable for government and explaining things and kind of pricing things out exactly. Like, they have one of their policies that they just have now is the loans to convert all student loans to grants. They cost it out as $10 million. So I think they're doing a really good job of that anyways, but I do also think that like I have kind of learned how politicians talk, and that the importance of framing things so that they're likable for the politician to present to the public, as well as, of course, being based in like principles. But that's not always what the politicians are as interested in.
Any other questions?
You've talked about it in your speech, different issues of equity that we see on campus and campaigns that you may run to combat those issues. But at times as organizers, we find ourselves in positions where we want to launch a campaign, but it's an issue that we may not necessarily have dealt with ourselves. So you, for example, may not have dealt with the same issues that a racialized student may have dealt with. How would you plan to, tackle those situations in your position as external vice president if you're elected?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. And I mean, of course, no one knows everything. And I really think that open communication and listening to what other people have to say is important, and engaging other people too. And like, obviously I can't speak to the experience of a racialized student at King's, and I would never want to speak for the experience of a racialized student at King's either. I also think that like part of my role would be facilitating and empowering other people to kind of have a platform to speak about the issues that are important for them, and maybe like help organize if I will some like platforms to organize, like we'll have a budget to organize, some skills at organizing, and kind of helping empower other people as well as learning from them. But I don't ever want to speak for people that I don't have a similar experience for. But I also want to make sure that all issues are represented. I don't know if that like gets to your question. All right.
Alex.
I have kind of a follow-up question to that, because the external vice president is often kind of a place where external campaigns come into the university, and also our internal campaigns kind of go out to the world, or go out at least to our students. And I wonder how you navigate the relationship between what your personal politics might be and where the students have voiced to you their interest in running major campaigns on campus. So if students approached you and said, "We are very anti-fire hydrant, and you are so pro-fire hydrant," how do you navigate that?
I mean, I think that's something that would need to be approached on like a case-by-case basis. I would hope that I wouldn't be the kind of person that would just immediately shut down another idea because it wasn't my personal politics. But if like there were a campaign that were to come onto campus that is like kind of controversial, I guess it would be like I would want to have a discussion with the executive, a discussion with counselors, and kind of like I don't really feel like I can answer that question on like a generalized basis, but I guess it would have to take like. Are you asking whether I'd be open to? Yeah, sorry. Do you want to?
Do you want me to just give you an example to talk about?
Is it? Are you going to say the Israelis against apartheid?
Well, that would be a good one, but like actually that's a perfect one. So why don't we just do that? Do you want to talk about that? You don't have to take a stance in this.
I had a worm farm when I was a child. And, I feel like we are kind of opening a can of worms, which is vaguely dangerous as they're supposed to never be exposed to light, hence the brown paper that was supposed to be around the worm farm at all times. So I don't know if this is necessarily the appropriate venue to get into like my personal beliefs about that specific debate. but I guess I think that like generally I'm a fan of freedom of speech, but I'm also not a fan of hate speech. So I would have to think in examples of situations where there's a campaign that maybe was or wasn't aligned with my specific political views, I would look at whether it was respecting freedom of speech, but then also whether it was respecting hate speech, and so that's I think the answer I'll give in this situation.
Okay.
Any other questions?
All right, so I guess we'll wrap it up there.